Across the political spectrum, you will hear things like climate change is a hoax or we're going to be burned to the ground by climate change. If you're tired of hearing both extremes, I want you to join me and block out the noise just for this video. Now, imagine a world where we can drive our internal combustion engine cars, billowing exhaust fumes into the atmosphere, and there being no negative consequences. A fuel where no change to the status quo is required, while being a step closer to pleasing Greta Thunberg. A decade ago, this would have been a far-fetched idea, but today that seemingly idealistic future is well within our grasp, thanks to a product which is currently undergoing testing and is in the process of being scaled up for more widespread use. That product has been dubbed e-fuel and was cooked up by the company HIF, or Highly Innovative Fuels. HIF is responsible for creating a gasoline that is carbon neutral. Now, this may seem like a counterintuitive prospect, but that's exactly the reason why it got the attention of and $75 million investment from Porsche. Currently though, the biggest achievement of this e-fuel is not at replacing all of the fossil fuels we use today, but rather it's stalling the phasing out of gasoline, diesel, and all the other pollutant-producing fuels we use today. Great start for a carbon-neutral fuel, and thank you to Germany for making this happen. Hello people of the internet, I'm Nico, German, car enthusiast, and presumably a future Porsche owner if I want to drive internal combustion engine cars past 2035 or so. In this video, I want to explain why Porsche lobbied against EU's climate legislation and what this all has to do with government overreach. First, I need to give some context as to why Porsche lobbied against the EU's proposed climate legislation. At the beginning of 2023, the European Commission was all set up to pass some new laws aiming to reduce our impact on the environment, and one of these laws would ban the production of internal combustion engine cars by the year 2035. For some car companies that maybe produce battery electric vehicles exclusively, this is exactly what they would want, as it would ideally remove some competition. For other car companies, it is more so a logistical problem of changing their manufacturing processes to something like battery electric vehicles. But for some, and Porsche especially, it is the end of the company as we know it. For any car enthusiasts watching, I don't need to explain why this is, but for the majority of you, let me give you a sub 1 minute history lesson on Porsche's dependence on the internal combustion engine. Post-World War II, Porsche was in the process of rebuilding their brand's image, which, if you know Porsche's pre-World War II history, was definitely a little bit tarnished, to put it mildly. And so, Porsche did the only thing that would win over the hearts of the people: make a sports car. The product of that decision was a sport coupe with a rear-mounted engine, not the 911, but the 356. This recipe, while unconventional, proved quite popular and has resulted in 70 years of die-hard enthusiasts who love the unconventional design and the driving experience that comes with having a performance engine at the back of the car. Porsche execs know full well how particular their enthusiasts can be, and there is no better example of this than the 996 generation of the 911. The design of the headlights caused such a stir that Porsche went back on the design just to appease the enthusiasts. So imagine the reaction if Porsche were to make the 911 electric. Because that would be the likely reaction to losing the gasoline engine, Porsche invested $75 million into the development of carbon-neutral gasoline because the heritage and the customer base is all too important for the brand. And it's in this context that Porsche CEO Oliver Blume decided to lobby in Germany to vote against the proposed climate legislation. Now, ignoring Porsche's reasons for lobbying against the climate policy, what objective reasons are there for voting to have e-fuel included? Well, first of all, considering the climate policy was aiming to transition Europe towards carbon-neutral energy sources, to not have carbon-neutral fuels like e-fuel seems counterintuitive. And secondly, we also have to consider what the other option is, namely going all electric. Going fully electric would not only require replacing every single car on the road today, which itself is not a very environmentally friendly prospect, but it would also require building out thousands of new charging stations while also deconstructing the millions of gas stations we've built over the past century. And since e-fuel is simply gasoline just made in a clean way, there would be no need to go through the costly and energy-intensive process of replacing all the infrastructure. Lastly, I'm not in favor of a government body telling companies how to go about doing business. I'm not someone who thinks that having no government at all is the best way to live, but I think it would be better if governments would create laws that set targets of what needs to be achieved, and then let the scientists and the engineers and the brilliant minds of this world figure out their own unique methods of achieving these targets. Unfortunately, this is not a first-time case where the European Commission made laws that say how to go about doing business. A good example of this is the law that brought USB-C to the iPhone. Now, on the one hand, it's good that Apple is finally catching up to the competition and giving its customers the ability to charge all their Apple devices with one cable. It also means people across devices can now share charging cables, which means there is less e-waste from having all these different types of cables, which was the motive behind the law anyways. However, while USB-C is technically superior to Apple's proprietary Lightning cable, USB-C is now almost a decade old and is starting to reach the limits of what is technically possible. So what will happen when the next generation of charging/data transfer cable is ready to come to market? Well, in that case, the EU would have to scramble to get the law changed, because as it sits, European charging technology is limited to a design from 2014. And the German diplomats of the Free Democratic Party have a similarly solid rationale. Their argument is that the new laws were far too strict by eliminating all combustion engines, and that there should be more leniency that allows other, similarly climate-positive technologies to be used, namely e-fuels. So while I'm not an advocate for lobbying efforts, as they're normally made because of an organization's special interests, in this one instance, despite it still being about special interests, I am supportive of the end result of the lobbying efforts because it allows for more options in the environmentally friendly future we are aiming to build. And of course, there is still my personal bias as a car enthusiast who likes internal combustion engine cars. Because of that, I'm not really a fan of the EU's "this is how we're going to do it" approach, but one government body that I am more supportive of having this approach is, ironically, the EPA. The EPA has single-handedly removed hundreds of harmful products, including lead-based paints and fuels. And yet, despite leaded gasoline being outlawed, it is still in use today. Why that is, I'll discuss in my next video, so if you're interested in that, and also videos like this where I explain how the automotive industry affects our lives, then hit that subscribe button. It's free, and it helps me out more than you might think. Until next time, people of the internet, peace out.